Hello, my name is Kyra Douglas and welcome to my sport-specific rehabilitation gym-based exercise plan for my hockey case study. During this presentation, I will firstly give an overview of my case study, including their injury and areas of their sport-specific skills that will be addressed during the gym-based phase of their rehabilitation plan. Next, I will show the gym-based exercises I have chosen for my case study. They will be performed by a volunteer, as this presentation can be shown to members of the MDT before the athlete takes part, so that everyone is in agreement that these exercises would be the most beneficial. Lastly will be the progression criteria. This is to show what the athlete will be assessed on so that they can progress to the next stage of rehabilitation. The athlete is a 22-year-old female that has experienced a grade 2 hamstring tear. The athlete's injury is non-traumatic, as it has been hypothesised that it may have occurred due to previous functional deficits, running mechanics and overuse. Elliott and colleagues found that re-injury of the hamstrings can be due to ineffective previous care and can occur up to 2 weeks after returning to play. This being the reason why it may be important to consult members of the MDT so that input can be given from different perspectives. The athlete's sport and physical demands form a basis for what activities will be included in their training, and these activities should relate to their sport or be adaptable for what they need. Now we will be looking at the session plan for the athlete, which includes a warm-up, a main session consisting of neuromuscular and proprioceptive exercises, strengthening exercises for the hamstring and core stability exercises. Lastly, there will be a fitness drill and a cool down. We will firstly need to get the athlete's heart rate up and increase their circulation to the working muscles, as well as promoting synovial fluid movement of the lower limbs. This will get the athlete ready for their exercises to come and reduce injury during the session. This will be done by using the treadmill. They should be running at approximately 80 to 90% of their maximum heart rate. A previously mentioned risk factor was the athlete's running mechanics. It is being suggested that prompts may be given to the athlete while running to help them improve on this, or notes can be taken and the findings can be reported back to the athlete and the MDT. Once the athlete shows signs of ease or their heart rate does not hit the boundaries within the time, the speed of the treadmill can be increased as well as the incline, as this will help the athlete to work harder. Dynamic stretches have been included in the warm-up, as at this stage the athlete's tissues will have just passed the remodelling stage, meaning that it will have significant scar tissue formation. Therefore, stretching should be done before exercise so that the athlete can increase the length of the injured muscle and get the most range of motion out of the area. Dynamic warm-ups have been shown to improve power and agility measures compared to that of static stretching, which has been said to reduce muscle contractility as shown in literature by Macmillan and colleagues, 2006. This is why I've chosen to do straight leg kicks and floor sweeps. The athlete should aim to do at least 15 repetitions. They can do more if they feel like the area is still tight and restricted. The athlete can use their arms as a prompt and to stabilise themselves when swinging their legs. Improvement can be seen as the leg gets higher in their kicks. Also, they can kick their feet to their hands, and improvement can be seen as the leg gets higher towards the hands. As previously mentioned, floor sweeps aim to stretch the hamstrings. They should be done for 15 repetitions, though can be increased if tension is still felt within the muscle. The athlete can also walk while stretching as to improve their coordination and balance throughout the movement. Improvement can be seen as the athlete flexes further through their hips towards the floor and the arms swing closer to the ground. It is key to mention that the athlete should also stretch their hip flexors, quadriceps and gluteals, as these are important muscles that are always used when running. Though a video has not been provided, these can be done by the athlete performing gluteal kickers, which requires the athlete to fully flex the knee and slightly extend the hip, resulting in their heel touching their glutes. This will stretch their quadriceps and hip flexors. To stretch their glutes, a straight leg kick can be done with a deduction, bringing the leg across the body medially. We are now moving on to the main session. We will first start with neuromuscular exercises. Previous reviews have found that neuromuscular training programs with different exercises such as stretching, strengthening, balance, agility and plyometrics have been shown to reduce lower limb injuries in sport. Within hockey, players often use a rotational swing of the trunk while lunging. This movement pattern has been said to promote a more powerful shot than just that of the arms with a parallel two-footed stance. This would be considered to be an open kinetic chain movement as no point of the body is fixed during that movement. To recreate this, the athlete will perform high and low wood chops. The athlete should aim to slightly lunge with their left leg. Deeper depth of the lunge can be used as a form of progression. This should be repeated 3 to 5 times for a minimum of 3 sets. To progress the sport-specific nature of this exercise, the athlete may stand with their back towards the machine. They will then jump side to side, landing in a lunge, and then swing through, performing a low chop. Single leg windmill touches is another neuromuscular exercise that I will use within my plan, as it has been said that eccentric single leg windmills have shown improvement for altered running mechanics and hamstring deficits. They also encourage activation of the glutes. This would be needed for the athlete as due to a weakening of the hamstrings, the glutes, especially glute med, can become underreactive, which would compromise their lumbopelvic region. So strengthening the muscles and stabilising the pelvis is important. An increased anterior tilt will also put more strain on the hamstrings, as it is a biarticular muscle, as it attaches to the pelvis and to the head of the fibula. This exercise should be done for 3 sets of 3 to 5 repetitions. The angle of the descent should be changed each time a set is done to target different fibres. We are now going to be looking at some of the proprioceptive exercises that have been chosen for this plan. Firstly, proprioception, as defined by Goldschneider 1898, is the conscious awareness of the body and movement of the limbs. As mechanoreceptors of the joints, muscles, tendons and skin are essential for neural control of movement, losing proprioceptive afferents could mean the athlete's spatial awareness, stationary and motion posture, as well as reflexive control, will be impaired. As the athlete is going to be playing a team sport, which requires them to find space to pass to their teammates, attack their opposition and defend their goal, impairment in limb control and spatial awareness will have dire effects on their gameplay. Because of this, the single leg asterisk will be done. The athlete will stand on their uninjured leg and place it in the middle of the 8-point asterisk. With the injured leg, they will tap each point of the asterisk and bring it back to their start position. The only time their injured leg touches the floor is when they tap the floor at the end of the asterisk. 5 sets of this exercise should be done. Weight will be able to be introduced as the athlete improves. The exercise can also be timed, and the athlete should be encouraged to reduce their time while also keeping good control over their movement. The second proprioceptive exercise is the side-to-side jumps with eyes closed. This exercise incorporates proprioception, plyometrics and dynamic stabilisation. When playing hockey, even though it is classified as a non-contact sport, the players may accidentally bump into each other. Using this exercise will build single leg stability. It will also encourage the athlete to use their abdominals, glutes and quadriceps to stop them from falling and losing their balance, and strengthen their kinetic chain. As seen on the screen, the athlete will start on one leg and jump to the other, keeping the starting leg off the ground. Markers can be placed on the floor as a boundary for the width the athlete would need to perform the controlled jump. The markers can be spread further apart as the athlete's jump becomes more controlled, as travelling over a further distance may be challenging for them. To prepare the athlete for contact within a game and to improve their balance while they are completing a set, The therapist can slightly nudge the athlete on the side of the body that the leg is raised to give overpressure to the jump. This exercise should be repeated for 10 times for 3 sets. We will now look at strengthening exercises for the hamstring. Hamstring rollouts have been proven to not only strengthen the hamstrings, but also the glutes and muscles of the lumbopelvic hip complex. It activates the upper and lower rectus abdominis as well as their obliques, while inhibiting the rectus femoris activity. This is important for the patient's aforementioned anterior pelvic tilt, as Erickson and Sherry 2017 found that increased concentric quadriceps strength can decrease extension of the hip and is a risk factor for future hamstring injury and muscle imbalances. The athlete will lie supine on the floor and place their heels just before the midline of the Swiss ball. They will then raise their pelvis and tense their core. This will stabilise them through the movement. Knee extension and flexion will then be performed 10 times for a minimum of 3 sets. Once the athlete is comfortable performing these, they can use a single leg to perform this exercise, while a dumbbell is placed on their pelvis, increasing the athlete's core activity. Now moving on to the cable hip extension. The reason cable hip extension has been chosen is because this exercise activates glutes and upper fibres of the hamstring, which is beneficial for running mechanics and overall posture. However, it also aids in lengthening tight hip flexors, specifically the iliopsoas and rectus femoris, as with an anterior pelvic tilt, they can become shortened and restricted. It has been shown in previous literature that this lengthening of these muscles can be done by static stretching. However, accompanying strengthening of a muscle with lengthening of another is a beneficial corrective exercise, as it increases neuromuscular control in the hamstrings while decreasing in the hip flexors. The athlete can use a resistance band tied low around a pole, or they can use a cable machine with an ankle cuff. A cable machine has been chosen to better monitor their weight increments, which can be used as an outcome measure. They should stand parallel to the machine with the ankle cuff just above the malleoli of the ankle, with their back in a neutral position, showing no signs of compensation by lumbar lordosis. The athlete extends their hip, keeping their knee extended. This should be done for 3 sets of 10 repetitions. To progress this exercise, weight on the machine can be increased. Also, abduction of the hip can be added to the movement. The prone leg curl exercise has been added to this plan to focus mainly on the eccentric strengthening of the injured muscle. Chumanov and colleagues, 2011, found the hamstring to be the most susceptible to injury during the terminal phase of sprinting, just before the hamstring is at full length. As shown in the icon, the hip is flexed and the knee is in the process of extension to place the foot on the ground. Because of this, Schmidt, Tim and McHugh, 2012, concluded that lengthened eccentric training may increase the end range strength, resulting in fewer injuries. When performing this exercise, the athlete should lie prone on the machine with the leg pad on the distal third of the tibia. They should hold onto the handles at the front of the machine and then flex their knee, making sure to keep their abdomen, femur and upper part of their patella on the bed of the machine. Schmidt and colleagues suggested a progression to Nordic hamstring curls with the aid of a clinician, as a greater range of motion can be achieved, as well as a higher gravity force on the upper body than that of just the lower leg. This is a closed kinetic change movement, as the upper body will be the only section moving. This exercise should be repeated 10 times for 3 to 5 sets. Throughout literature, it is suggested that core stability is an important component of nearly every motor activity. If a movement occurs within the lower extremity, it has been said that the core activates before the initiation of the movement to offer support. It has also been said that the central nervous system creates a stable foundation for movement of the lower limbs through contraction of the transverse abdominis and the multifidus muscles. For this reason, core exercises have been included in this plan to improve strength within the core, as it is important for the athlete's functional movement. The first exercise is the dead bug. This exercise has been chosen as it is similar to that of the gym ball rollout, but in this exercise the athlete will increase the range of motion in the hip, promoting the use of the hip flexors and quadriceps, as well as the AB and adductors, as they are needed to keep the leg stable in the upright flex position. This exercise should be done for 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions. It has been said that the dead bug improves coordination as more than one limb is moving at a time. The movement should be slow and controlled, and all of the muscles should be contracting. Weight can be added to the ankles as a progression. Next is the seated medicine ball rotation. In the athlete's chosen sport of hockey, rotation of the trunk is predominantly used as to hit the ball across the ground with their long wooden stick. Because of this, rotation within exercises should be recreated. This exercise aims to keep the pelvis and back in a neutral position while strengthening the abdominals, internal and external obliques. To perform this exercise, the athlete is seated on the floor with heels also on the ground. From the upright seated position, the athlete should extend at the hip until activation of the abdominals can be felt. They will then perform the side-to-side rotations, tapping the ball on the ground when full rotation has been reached. 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions should be completed. To progress this exercise, they should raise their heels off the ground. This makes them less stable and will encourage activation of the hamstrings. Lastly, for the core exercises is the plank bridge with rotation. This is an open kinetic chain movement that uses all of the body's muscles and coordination. As when in the plank position, the athlete will have to activate various muscles as to stabilise themselves and prevent a dropping of the pelvis and sloping of the back. Muscles such as the glutes, quadriceps, hamstrings and core that have been used before within the plan. However, this exercise will also activate back and chest, also arm muscles. Overall, this is a good strengthening exercise to finish on, as it can highlight areas that may be under or overreactive. For example, this can be seen if the patient has pushed their pelvis too high. Muscles on their posterior region may need to be isolated and strengthened. The athlete will start in a plank position with a dumbbell in each hand. Once the timer has been started, they will rotate their whole body, placing one foot behind the other for stabilisation. They will then raise the dumbbell in the air. They should try to hold this position for at least 3 to 5 seconds. Then return to their start position and rotate to the contralateral side and repeat. 3 sets of these exercises should be completed and they should be timed for 1 minute each. The last exercise that will be done is the T drill. This exercise is being done mainly for the athlete's overall cardiovascular health. As they have now completed their plan, the overseeing therapist wants to put a strain on the athlete to promote fatigue, as it is thought that improvement of an athlete's metabolic system during training can lessen the risk of them fatiguing during competition. This exercise also measures speed, agility and decision making when making directional changes, as their foot placement and body's angle need to be in the right position for them to accelerate quickly. Standing at the bottom of the midline of the T, the athlete, keeping good control of the body, should run straight down the middle, then side shuffle from each side. Once back in the middle, they will run backwards to the beginning. This will be repeated until fatigued. Additionally, their supervisor can use the rate of perceived exertion chart to gauge the athlete and see if they have reached their maximum output. If using this exercise as an agility drill, it is suggested that 3 1-minute sets can be used. Moving on now to the cool down. For the cool down, the therapist will do proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitated stretching. If the muscles were to be left in their current state, the athlete may experience tight and restricted muscles the next day. Therefore, PNF stretching will be done to prevent this. As Clark and colleagues 2010 reported, that static tension applied to the musculotendinous unit is facilitated by the Golgi tendon organ. Receptors are then sent to the autonomic nervous system, allowing for a reflexive relaxation of the muscle. This first stretch should be held for 15 to 30 seconds. After the first stretch, an isometric contraction will be sustained for 3 to 5 seconds. After that, another stretch will be applied. Overpressure is applied to this stretch, pushing the muscle into a new range of motion. These stretches can be seen below. From top left to right is a hamstring stretch, hip flexor and quadricep stretch, gluteal stretch, and a gastrocnemius stretch. Once the athlete has completed all of their gym-based exercises for the next few weeks, it should be expected that the athlete should be nearing closer to returning to their field of play. Not necessarily playing as of yet, but they will be under the supervision of the strength and conditioning coach and also their team coach, taking part in sport-specific drills and training. Before this, it is important that they meet the criteria to progress forward as presented by Schmidt, Tim and McHugh, 2012. This is highlighted in the table below. The progression criteria for returning to sport and field play is that they should have pain-free forward and backward running at a moderate intensity, full strength without pain during resisted prone knee flexion, strength deficit less than 20% when compared against the uninjured limb, and pain-free maximum eccentric contraction. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. On the next few slides will be the reference list that I have compiled together and that I've used throughout my presentation to make it as evidence-based as possible. Thank you very much again for listening.